and welcome to the third session in the series for how to build your course using Canvas. My name is Melissa Dagne, and we are obviously familiar with each other by now. This is the third time we've met, but I do want to reiterate I'm sharing my screen on some of these repeat resources I keep referencing. So just to let you guys know, this Canvas webpage for UIW is really the hub of trying to get everybody on the same page and keep us all on the same page. So there are some edits coming. We're going to be adding some resources and some new information to this page. So be sure to bookmark it and refer back. I don't have an estimated time frame on when those get published, but we did work on them yesterday. So it should be any time now. And then I'm going to jump to that asynchronous resource that I've been using to sort of walk us through each of these sessions. And we started off 2 weeks ago with the overview of what was happening and how I would proceed through this. Well, we've gone through organizations and settings, and we're now at editing and building content areas. Now, this week and next week for preparing graded assignments, they are very similar in content and in theory and instructions. There's just going to be more next week on the settings of assignments and the grade book aspect and how that part works. But editing and building content areas is really going to apply to every single place you get to build something in Canvas, because it's just one item, the rich content editor, that you have to know how to use. And excuse me, if I cough every so often with these allergies. I'm so excited that it's raining. Hopefully bring the pollen down. So I am going to skip out of sessions 1, this overview, and I'm going to go straight into the session 3. And the first part I want to talk about is how I transitioned from what we talked about last week to what we're talking about this week. And so I went into my demo courses and I really spent, about an hour, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, cleaning up my Blackboard content, deleting the duplicate files. I went through and changed some of the naming conventions to get rid of dates. Had a lot of duplicate files. And then I obviously cleaned out that UIW template information we talked about last week that I wouldn't be needing in Canvas anymore because it was very Blackboard specific. And now we're starting fresh. So on my left-hand side, I've got my sandbox demo. And on my right-hand side, I have my academic shell demo. So I've put my Blackboard content in both of these demonstrations. People who aren't teaching in the summer are looking at the sandbox option. It looks different because the blueprint pieces are not going to be in your sandbox. They're going to be in the academic shell. So if you're teaching in the fall, you're over here. And if you're teaching in the summer, hopefully you're working directly in your academic shell and building it out in full right there. So what I'm going to do is jump into, give me 1 second to move. I'm going to reference this one right here. So this checklist is going to cover the rich content editor and then each of the topics I'll talk about today. And then we'll wrap up with time to discuss maybe your questions or specific circumstances. And these small groups, it's really nice because we can really get more personal and talk about your specific needs. So I'm going to move that out of the way so we can see what we're doing for now. And I'm going to talk to you about the rich content editor. So the rich content editor is actually, it is a way that you get to create website elements without knowing how to code and the developer aspect of building websites. So your Canvas course is really a website, and this rich content editor option lets you build things that look and function with code in the back end without having to know how to do that. So first, let's talk about the syllabus. And I want to click on the syllabus link in both of my 2 demo courses, show you that they look a little different because I've got these blueprint templated items over here that are kind of starting me off on the right foot versus my sandbox. It's going to be just an empty space. So I click edit in anywhere in Canvas. This applies to the syllabus, your welcome page, any of your pages, your assignments, your discussions. Everywhere is going to have an edit button. It's very straightforward. And this is the rich content editor. So this is what we're looking at. It works exactly like word processing. If you're familiar with Word, or if you use Mac and you have Pages, I do believe it's, iPages or something like that. I don't remember the exact one, but word processing software, it's all going to be options for your menu at the top and then your workspace that's inside this, red outline based on where your cursor is. So you have some control over this. You can resize to give yourself a bigger workspace. You can expand it to be the full screen if you prefer. So this is really about personal choice. But the control options are really going to be at the top. We're going to talk about that a little bit. I can type and change this information, and I'm going to delete this learn more about uploading documents and embedding documents in the rich content editor. This comes with your academic shell, but you may not want to leave it there because it's not applicable to your students. So you'd want to delete that. And I just hit the back button. And you'll see my cursor turned black. If there was any links that are red and it still was blinking red, I would need to hit the back button one more time. And that's just a word of warning. One of those tips on using technology is that when you're working in a WYSIWYG editor, which is a what you see is what you get editor, it can sometimes hold on to code that you had, but you now want to delete, and you just want to pay attention to that, little clues. If the cursor blinks red, then that link is still there, and you would just hit backspace one more time. So some minor behaviors with web browsers and WYSIWYGs, and that's not really a Canvas thing. That's just with a website building functionality across the board, no matter what product you'd be using. So I'm going to actually delete this space to pull this information all the way up to the top. And I can actually take this sentence and I can Control-C to copy it, or I can right-click to copy, or I can edit and click copy. So I've got 3 ways to copy. And I can paste this text over into this other course. What I cannot do is copy and paste this link. So this link is to a document in this course's file structure, which is what we talked about last week. And if I copy this link into this course, it's going to look like it works, but people who are enrolled in this course are not going to be enrolled in this course. And the link is actually going to be pointing over here to these files. So that will result in a broken link for your students. So just make sure if you copy and paste from anywhere, it's only text. Images and files are going to need to be uploaded to the course file area and linked on that page only. Now, the beauty of Canvas is that once you put some files into your structure, you can copy and paste them within the same course. So if I wanted to put this information somewhere else, anywhere in my course, I could copy and paste that. So right here, this is not the actual syllabus that I want to link to. This is the template example from UIW. So I'm going to click to remove the link. And I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm actually going to use my options at the top to insert the syllabus for this actual RSO example course. So I'm going to say insert, and I'm going to go to document and choose course document. I am so sorry, I apologize. Sounding a little froggy. So anyway, I'm coming to space. Well, you're going to see I have tons of stuff. I don't have to actually look through all of it. The search feature will pull up anything, if you spell correctly, with the word syllabus. So here's my sample that I got rid of, and here's the one I actually want to use. So all I have to do is click it, and it puts it right there on the page. The beauty of the rich content editor is I can actually change the wording and the link will still stay there. So if I wanted to say, syllabus and schedule, and I want to say, I don't like it saying PDF at the end of it, I just want it to be a regular link, I can say delete these last few characters. And that is still the same link to the document I selected. I've just changed the words and the appearance. So once I've done that, I actually can put my cursor in the link and I have some more options. You can edit that text the same way I did on the page. You can also do that here. You can change the link, which I highly doubt you'll ever want to do that. Just it's an option if you needed to edit, but I don't memorize. I don't memorize URLs, so I don't expect anybody to do this manually. I would not use it. I'm going to click to preview inline instead of having students expand it themselves. I'm going to say to preview inline, and I'm going to have it expand by default. I'm going to say done, and then I'm going to update, which means save. And you'll see that now instead of that sample, I have my actual syllabus linked and functioning the exact same way. Now over here in my sandbox, maybe I want it to look different, and I'm going to show you another option. So I can insert the document again, same functionality, just a different course. And notice it only had one option because the academic blueprint is not in here, so I don't see two. And then I'm going to leave the link options on this one to preview in overlay. Done, and I'm going to say update to save. And what that means is when a student clicks the link, this overlay pops up and lets them examine the document. And then they can close it, or they can click the download arrow and keep the file for themselves. So lots of ways you control how your content behaves, and really just going to be the same repetitive buttons and rich content editor over and over again in various places. So edit, changing things, and then clicking save for everywhere you ever go. So we're going to go through a couple more examples of that in different places. And I'll show you some more expansive use of that rich content editor. So now we're going to jump over to announcements. And before I get started on announcements, does anybody have any questions or want to chat about anything I've shown so far? Okay, yeah, pretty straightforward. Again, in this space for announcements, you have an extra feature to add a new one. So plus announcement means to add a new one, and you could click that button and you get a fresh space to do so. Or what I'll show you on the right-hand side is you can go into any of these existing ones and edit them. So if I scroll down, I've got a welcome right here. I can click the welcome and I can edit. And then I can update this information that's right here. So maybe this course has not been delayed until June. Maybe that does not apply this year and I would need to change this information. I can do so. Maybe I want to add a link to some other information, or I want to put a video in this welcome. I can do those things. So up here in all of your options, I'm going to expand this page a little larger so that we can see. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So what you're looking at, you've got edit options, you have view options, you have inserting a variety of multimedia or just visual features. You have formatting options. You want to show superscript, subscript. You can edit the code if you so choose to want to change HTML and want to put something in there. And then you also have ways you can change the appearance of your font and your formatting, text color, etc. This option here at the bottom, clear formatting, it's something I use on a regular basis. So let's say I copied and pasted this information and I don't really want these highlights. If I select all this text and I click, this is the shortcut to the same clear formatting button that I found over here at the bottom. So two ways to do the same thing. If I click that, it's all going to go away. And then I can use my Control Z to undo if I've changed my mind and I want to put that back. So lots of control, just like you would in a Word document or even PowerPoint. So then you've also got tools. Tools are going to be external options, which we'll talk about in a second, and then obviously tables, which you want to reserve the use of tables for data displays. So accessibility is a big deal in online spaces, and we want to make sure that if our students are using any sort of assistive device, and a screen reader would be able to manage that. So when you use a table in a rich content space, you are expected to give it alternative text the same way you would an image, and that's so that the screen reader would read that information out loud. So you really want to avoid using tables to format your text because it doesn't really translate well for all students' access. So formatting other options, tables for data. And then I'm going to show you, let's see. So let's say we want to link some information. I'm going to open up a new tab right here, and I've got some links to various stuff. Let's say I want to use this YouTube video here, and I'm going to not want it to start playing on me. I don't think it will by default, but just in case I was going to pause. And then let's say I want to give a link to Microsoft Teams tips, and this is just total example. I can copy this URL. I can come back over into my space and I can select some text, maybe that's more applicable, but for example's sake, I can insert an external link here, or I can come over here to the chain link icon for the shortcut, and I can do the exact same thing. So as you get more familiar, you'll probably come to like the icons better. I do. If you hover over them, they give you the tooltips, so it's pretty friendly. When you click that external link, it gives you the space to put the URL, and you can say done. And now this text has become a link to this website over here. Same concept for YouTube videos. You can, of course, do the link the way I just did, like for this particular website. But if you're asking students to watch one video, I don't recommend doing the link. I always recommend share and choose the embed code. So I'm going to copy this embed code, and you do have control over if you'd only want them to start playing it at the 5-minute mark. Maybe you're wanting to do something very specific, you can control that. And then you have some options here for your preference. So I'm going to actually close this. I've copied that code, and I want to put that video right here between wishing you the best and other important announcements. So right here, I've got an icon that's a cloud. And then when I hover, it says embed. And then I can also insert embed. I've got 2 ways to do that. And again, same familiar format, something pops up, I paste that information, I click submit, and now that video is on the page. I also can, like I had mentioned, use the external tools, these apps. It's a plugin right here. Looks like an electric cord. What you see is my most recent tools. So what you will see might be different. So the things you use most often are going to show for your personal use. I'm going to click view all so you can see all the choices. There's lots of different stuff here you might find useful. If you want to click a Microsoft Teams meeting, it'll put a link right there into your page. Students can join. Students can also create Teams meetings, so it's a good tool for their use on group work and getting together remotely. So I'm going to scroll down and choose YouTube, and I'm doing that, and I'm going to type in best practices for Canvas in the search bar. So let's say I hadn't planned ahead and I didn't have any videos bookmarked. I could search for videos on any topic in the search bar. And then best practices for Canvas, if I scroll down, I can find the exact same video I already put on the page with the embed code, and I can click embed and it'll do the same thing. They look a little bit different, but they function the exact same. So you have multiple ways to accomplish the same goals depending on how you're trying to edit and build your content. So I'm actually going to backspace and delete one of them because I don't need to. And I'm going to scroll down and click Save just to show you how that looks for students, and they'd be able to play the video right here on the page. I'm going to go ahead and separate back. Over here on my fresh side, I'll show you after you've created something in the rich content editor, you do have control options or settings at the bottom. Now this is going to be a repetitive feature depending on where you're working, but for the most part, it's the same concept. You're going to select or enter in some information or make some choices. The choices will change depending on where you work. So for announcements, you can post to specific sections or the entire class. You can attach one file. However, you can link to as many files as you want in the rich content editor. So keep that in mind if you've got multiple things you need to deliver. You can delay posting, which is a really great benefit for setting your course up to function a little bit more automatically. You can, have your weekly introductions and maybe your weekly summaries already typed out for what you're going to cover, and then just select the dates and times that you want that to release to your students. You'll also be allowed to accept comments from your users or not. Now, if you are allowing users to comment, similar to the discussion board has very similar option here. You can select that users must post before seeing replies. Now, use case would be you want to get some feedback. You've posted some sort of question. You don't want them influenced by seeing other people's ideas first. Then you would use the user must post before seeing replies. And once they post, then everybody's replies become visible to them. And then of course you've got enabling podcast feeds and allowing liking. And then once you select these, you've got some more information that will pop up. All depends on how you want yours to behave. I'm going to actually click cancel, and I'm not going to save that. So I've lost my work. Anything that I have done in that space was not saved, and I will not be able to get it back. So keep that in mind as you're working. So you can also select, and I'll go back and show you on both versions of whatever space you're working in. You can select and delete. The trash can is the universal delete symbol. And then you've also got options when you click the snowman additional menu that's usually on the right-hand side of items or spaces. So that's definitely there. And then you can see you can lock down when you're done wanting people to talk about a topic. So if you don't have any questions about announcements, we'll move on to discussions. They will function similar, but they're used a little bit differently. So again, you're going to have the plus button. I'm going to expand this space so you can just see it in one. I'll add a new discussion because this particular demo course does not have any discussions at this time. So I'm basically looking at it, and I would say whatever the title, I'm going to call it an example discussion. I can put all the instructions I want students to have in this space. Maybe I want to put a link to somewhere, a link to an article or a video, and then I want them to hold a discussion about it. So I can have instructions to watch the video, and then maybe watch video and post reflection, and then reply to another student who moves you. I can then edit this and change the formatting. So I can go over to my bullets and I can make numerical list. I can say maybe I want to bold and change this into a heading. So heading 2 being the largest, and then they go down. So you can sort of hierarchy structure. And when you do this, Using these formats, you actually are crafting information that the screen readers can read well. So this accessibility button down here at the bottom will check I don't have any issues. And so if you're not familiar with accessibility features and how to structure your content, Canvas does that thinking for you, and you just hop over here, hit the button, and it'll give you some feedback if you've got any problems. So if I put, for example, an image, I'm going to come to image. I'm going to go to course images, see if I have any saved. I'm not sure that I do. Oh, I do. Oh, fantastic. So I can come over here and I can pick one. Well, I can pick something that is an average picture, and I can also pick something you can kind of tell they're really blurry. That's because they're small icons. So they look a little blurry in the preview, but they come up very small. And then I also have control over the appearance. So let's say I want to make this image into something more icon-like. I can come over here and click my options, and I can choose to make it, extremely small. I can say 50 pixels by 32. It automatically preserves my ratio. And I've got some alt text here. It's just the file name, which doesn't, it's not usually very helpful. This is really just going to be a decoration. So I can check this box and I can say done. And then let's click that accessibility feature one more time. And it tells me it does not like that my checklist is titled with a file name because it's not very helpful. So if I close this and I click my image options, you can see I didn't do the same thing that I did for the other. If I click the decorative image and I say done, then I have solved that issue. Now, Canvas doesn't know that I've solved the issue because it's sort of stuck in this browser memory. And once I save and come back out, that usually clears itself out. So take it with a grain of salt. It's there to help. It's not always perfect. Okay, so at this point, I can come down. I can make, again, just like in the announcement section, I can control if this goes to an entire class or just a certain section. So maybe a topic came up in your Tuesday lab that you feel the Tuesday lab needs to have this discussion about, but the Thursday lab group does not. You can control that behavior. You can again attach files. This threaded option, so if you allow threaded replies, it lets unlimited nesting occur. So there will be subtopics. But if you don't check it, then it's just going to be this topic and straight level replies. Again, you can choose some of these behaviors, and you also have the option to make discussions graded. And we will talk all about those details next time in next week's session. I do like to point out though, while you're creating content and thinking about this stuff, the graded option and groups don't copy in the way that you would expect them to. So save group opportunities of setting things up in your assignments for when you're working in the academic, like in your academic course with the students. You'd create your groups, have that piece set up, and then deal with these last minute settings. So those are kind of like the very last topic when we're finalizing our course. We'll save that till the end. And then of course you can allow liking. And if it's not graded, you can still give it an add to students to do, which will come up in their course activity stream and remind them, sort of a time management tool of other things that they're still expected to do. So you just would select the date and time that they should do that. You, of course, can have available from and until if you don't want conversations occurring throughout the entire term. You control that feature here, and then you can save to come back and finish it later, or you can save and publish to go ahead and make it live for the students, which would turn it green. And in the discussion in this space, you would also have this green check mark. Now, those of you working for summer courses, your Q&A cafe and introduce yourself discussion, the Q&A cafe is just a really useful space for students to be able to ask general questions. But if you're planning on doing introductions in class, maybe in person, you can come over and just uncheck the screen and it will turn that off. Your students will no longer be able to see it. Okay, so announcements, syllabus discussion. We've sort of covered some basics on the rich content editor and different options in various places. Any questions before we move into pages and really like the meat of where you're going to control your course materials?
Yes.
Awesome.
Good morning. Hello.
Morning.
It's Tony. Can you tell me again about the decorative image checkbox? What the difference is between just a decorative image and a non-decorative image? Why?
Absolutely. So that's going to be an instructional perspective. So think about if you placed an image, let's just say, let's look at this page, for example. If I'm coming to this page as an individual to learn about 17 Microsoft Teams tricks, and this image doesn't teach me anything, it's decorative. If the image does teach me something, for example, this image right here, this is showing me something instructionally about the Teams feature. If I can't see or I can't see well, I have an assistive reader helping me understand the information on this page. And the alt text that you put in for this picture will be read to me because I can't see well enough to see the details myself. So your alt text would be something like, I'm trying to figure out what I'm actually looking at here. I'm not real, I mean, the search feature, I'm not really that instructionally great with this one, so I'm going to look at a better one. This being my settings when I'm out of office. So if I'm showing this and I don't have a description of what I'm talking about, I need to have the words associated with this image that I expect the user to understand. That might be something as, if you click the available option, you can change to choose busy, do not disturb, be right back, appear away, or reset status. That might be your alt text. And it's really just getting the point across of why you're using that picture. And if you don't have a point, then it's decorative.
Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. There's a question in the chat. Do you still need to upload the images to files before using them, or can you upload directly from your computer drive? Okay, so that is a great question, and we'll talk about that in pages next. I'm going to actually demonstrate that for you. So I'm going to head over to pages in my course menu over here. And because I'm working in the academic shell demo, I have a landing page, which is my front page. It is also set as my home, so it welcomes students to my course. And I'm going to actually choose to go into view all my pages. I'm going to pick somewhere else. I'm not going to mess with this to do the demonstration. So I click this button here. And I've got a list of all sorts of options I could choose from, or I can create a new page. I'm going to create a new page for this example. And I'm going to say this is example page for editing content, and put my cursor here. So when I choose to add an image to my course, the question was, does it need to be in my files already, or can I upload it from my computer? So that's going to be this option here, upload an image. Right here, I'm in the middle of working and building my page, and I want to just grab a picture I have on my computer. Well, if you click in this space, your computer files area is going to pop up and allow you to go and look for a picture. And then you can, of course, select one. I could say open, and then that picture that I selected is going to be put on the page. You get that space. Remember, if we just talked about if there's an instructional purpose that's not being explained in text, I would put that information here, an image speaks 1,000 words. Well, we need to describe that for the students who can't see. And then if there's no instructional purpose, I would just click decorative. Now, the problem with this method, I'm going to click submit. It's going to come up on my page. I can still manage my options the same way every other picture. The problem is that where did it put it in my files? Well, it created a whole new folder called uploaded media. It didn't give me the option to stay organized in any way. And that's really the difference between uploading files first or as you work. If you want to keep a nice organized file structure and put things maybe by module or by category of whatever way that you decided last week how you want to manage your files, that's very personal workflow decision, but it does have consequences for how Canvas behaves. So just keep that in mind. Same concept for if you attach a file to an announcement. It's not going to give you the option of where that file is going to go. It's just going to be an uploaded dump of what it decided for you. Okay, so that is definitely options for your images. I do want to talk, I'm going to delete this here. I want to talk a little bit about external versus course links. So what is the difference if I'm going to insert a link versus external versus course? Well, external was what I was showing you. Anywhere else out in the internet that you want to direct students to do something or to read something, that's an external link. It means external from your Canvas course. On the other hand, course links is going to be, I want to direct students with a link to something that's within my course. Now, I can use this to choose files and go into my course files and see my structure, and I can link to a PowerPoint on the page the same way that I did inserting a document from course documents. So there's two different ways to do that. I'm going to delete this. Mainly though, there's only one way to do a course link to somewhere else. So let's say I want to put a link on this page to my laboratory module. It's going to create a link there. And and I'm going to add module at the end of that so I remember what that link actually is. Let's say here I want to put a link to a page, and I've got my about my instructor. I'm going to say page just to keep myself knowing what I'm talking about. And let's say I want to link to my Lab 1 assessment upload assignment. So I'm able to craft whatever content I want and links to elsewhere on this page. So showing you the general functionality of the tools isn't as useful as what we're going to get into next, but hopefully that answers your various ways. You can always use the option to upload while you're working. So this is going to be a file upload, and I can go in and find some sort of document. I'm like, let me see, Zoom reports and attendance PDF, and I can say open, and I can put that there. I can always do that as I'm working, and then I can save. And then I'd find over here in my file structure that I have probably another addition, yes, to the same dump folder. Okay, so I actually want to leave this space and I want to talk about modules, because those of you who are working to build summer courses or fall courses, you're going to be working on getting your modules ready. Now, even though modules aren't talked about for a couple more weeks, I like to use them looking at this Blackboard information, because that's really, Blackboard spoke to Canvas in modules. And if I don't look at my modules now, I have trouble dealing with my content building. So that's why we're going to jump into modules, and I'm going to minimize the blueprint items that you will get with your academic shell. We're definitely going to talk about them, but just not right this second. So I'm going to minimize that from my view so I don't have to look at it. And now I'm looking at the same thing in both my sandbox and my academic space. So remember, I cleaned up and copied this from my Blackboard contents that was moved into Canvas for me. And then I left that alone. It's just going to sit over there as a record. So I'm going to be working on it and changing it here. When I scroll down, I see that there is really some organization issues with how Blackboard spoke to Canvas. And I'm going to want to edit my content to make it better. So the way I can tell that I've got some stuff kind of going on other than just visually is these icons on the left. So this is going to indicate a file. This is going to indicate a page. And again, hovering over, you don't have to remember anything because these tooltips are going to show you. This is going to be a subtitle. It was the name of the folder in Blackboard that had this information. And really, I'm just going to get a feel for the fact that students are not going to be able to navigate through this very easily. And I want to improve that for them. I also can see my handout 3 when I was cleaning up the fact that I have videos in my course because I don't want to store my videos in this course. I broke some of them as I was moving them around and cleaning things up. So I also need to pay attention to the fact that I have some things I need to fix. So what I want to talk about is how do I make this into something organized? Well, you have a lot of ways. And I would definitely like to show you some that I've worked out working with other faculty. So I'm going to show you a pharmacy course. Earlier this week, I had a conversation with this instructor, and their information, you can see, very all over the place, lots of different links, lots of different pages, lots of different titles. We talked it out, and all of this information is actually for very specific categories of materials. All of that stuff neatly fits into either pathophys, chemistry, pharm, or therapeutics. It just was handled a little bit differently in Blackboard with the names of instructors and the names of files and the references of dates. So as I move into building out the rest of this content, the faculty is going to decide, okay, I actually want to take all of this stuff and I want to put it on this page. And that's where we talk about, we're going to edit and move things around. So let me do the example here in our RSO course. I'm going to say, I'm going to edit this course documents module here, and I'm going to call it, let's just call it Laboratory 1. And this is just one off the top of my head way. The CPR roster probably has nothing to do with Laboratory 1, so I'm just going to move it out of the way for right now. I'll get back to it eventually. Eventually, everything will get attention. So here I'm going, oh, laboratory guidelines. If this is the introduction, the laboratory guidelines are likely going to need to go in Lab 1, or there's going to need to be an introduction to lab module. Doesn't matter how you want to organize it, as long as it makes sense to your students, you're going to be in a great place. So I'm just going to stick with Lab 1, and I'm going to say, okay, we're going to cover the guidelines. We're going to cover some of this information and see how I'm just moving it. And all I'm doing is just organizing it for my brain to wrap my head around what goes in Lab 1. I'm taking it out of generic lab and I'm putting it here. And then I'm going to actually open pages on another tab. So if I right click, I can open in a new tab. And the pages for this course are now going to be over here. So I can look at the modules in one space for the same course and open a page in another. And I'm going to create a page called Laboratory 1 or Lab 1 Materials. And on this page, I'm going to find all this Lab 1 information. Well, how do I know what this link is? Well, again, if you open in a new tab, you can figure it out by looking at the name of the document. So you'll see over here, it was called Laboratory 1 Case History and Pulses, but it's actually cardiovascular lab.docx. This is the way Blackboard functioned, and it's not really the way Canvas does things. It will let you do it, but I don't recommend it. So I'm going to come right here. I'm going to insert a course document, and I'm going to look for this file. And all you have to do is use the search feature. And I find cardiovascular lab.docx, exact match, and I put it on this page. And now over here, I can close this and I am free to delete that first item that I was working on. And I'm going to say remove. And what that did was it removed the link, but the file still exists in files. And I've already put it on this page, so I'm covered. And I just work through this one item at a time until my information is identified and organized. So this particular one, again, I can insert document, course document. I can find this lab assessment dash, have to spell correctly, lab assessment dash cardiovascular. So I have a lot of different ones, so I've got to find the right one. Okay, here it is. Got it. Now I can again close that, go back, and I can remove that file from there. And I can build this page out with text to give context to these links. I can have instructions. You, of course, could build cardiovascular information onto this page and add videos. Anything you want to do in Canvas allows you to do it creatively on the page. I can add it to the students to do with a date, and I can save to work later or save and publish when it's ready for the students. So I'm going to click save. Oh, I have to take the check mark if I don't want to enter a date. Click save. And this page I can now add to my module. And you could do this first or at the same time. There's lots of ways to do this. But I'm going to come down and I'm going to find, what did I call it? Lab 1 materials. And if you don't see it in the list, click cancel, refresh. When you're working in two windows side by side, it needs to be refreshed with this semicircle arrow to be able to know what you did on the left-hand side. So I did that. And now when I come to add a page, I have Lab 1 materials as a choice. So I'm going to add that. It's going to pop up at the bottom and I can move it to the top. So I can have a page called, let's say, for example, I want a page called Lab Intro and Guidelines. I'm going to add that. That's going to come first, then Lab 1 materials. Then let's say this Lab 1 assessment. I can decrease the indent and move it back over, and that could come third. And then once I move these three documents onto a page that they belong, my module is cleaned up and students can access the information in organized chunks using pages. Now, if you don't have that much stuff and you want to just use the document links this way, that is also completely valid and it works. But I do recommend knowing how to use the pages in case there is context that you need to type to be able to, tell students maybe a little bit more about what they're doing with these materials rather than just linking them right on the page. Okay, that is really the end of your options. You really have a lot of options. It just depends on your circumstances, and happy if you have questions, and I can also stay a little bit after the 11:30 mark if anybody needs to talk to me about their specific organization of materials in their course. Got a chat says all good. Thanks. You're very welcome.
Melissa, it's Tony again.
Yes.
I got a question. If we're looking at your screen, the laboratory one I think is the text header for the module.
Mhm.
If you look over to the right, you see the little check mark to the right of laboratory one. Does that publish everything below it, all the indented when
So
you
right here, these are not published. So
okay.
having this check does not make these published.
Okay.
However, if you uncheck the module and then you publish the entire module, it will turn everything inside of it on.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, if there aren't any questions, I'll end the recording and we'll see you guys next week.